Hello everyone and welcome to Magic Gathering Strat. I'm Binkabi and this will be the second limited lesson for you here. And it's gonna cover how and why, or maybe why not, to play around a card. So I hear this all the time, where someone says like, oh, I didn't play my spell because I know you have mana leak, for example. I know you have a counter spell, so I'm not even gonna play my spells. And that's just the wrong approach to playing around a card. You can't play around a card that you think the opponent have and just let it destroy your entire strategy. That's not how it works. That's not how you should approach it. So first of all, I want to discuss why you should play around a card. Why is that important? Well, the reason you're playing around a card at all is because it's bad for you. It's like, oh, if they have this specific card and I do this specific thing, I just lose if they have that. And that's not good. That's not what you want to be doing. But there is also the flip side of this. Why you shouldn't play around a card? Well, for example, if you're playing a game and you think that, maybe they have end hostilities, like I have here in the middle. Maybe they have that. I won't play my creatures. He's playing white and he's not playing out that much. Maybe he has end hostilities. Well, maybe it's just a slow deck and is thrilled that you're playing around a card that is, first of all, rare, and first of all, that you haven't seen or anything yet. You don't know that they haven't. You just think that that might be the card. So you shouldn't play around cards if you don't really think that you have the ability to, or that you don't know about. Let's say this. Let's take another example. Your opponent is passing with a 2-drop and a 3-drop and now has 4 untapped mana. He has, let's say, a 2-2 and a 3-3, and you have, let's say, a 4-4 that can attack. Well, to not have a play at 4 mana in this format as like Concept Arc here is pretty rare. That shouldn't happen. Well, there is one combo trick that is just completely destroying, completely horrible for you to walk into, and that's Dragon Scale Boon. So let's say his creatures are tapped and you have your 4-4 and it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna bash in. Well, they're gonna get a 5-5 and eat your 4-4. They're gonna use all their mana, you're gonna be way behind on board, and they will just unmorph their thing or whatever and destroy you. That's not good. That's one of the times you should play around a card. It doesn't matter if it's Dragon Scale Boon, maybe one is untapped, so Awaken the Barrier would do the same. That's a situation where you should play around something. Let's say you have Murderous Cut in hand. Well, attack away. Then it's a great attack because they use their trick and you 2-for-1 them and get in a bunch of damage. Pretty nice. Well, that leads us to the section about known information. Let's say this. Let's say you're playing game 2 and you got a spell Disdainful Stroked. The first game. Your opponent has left 2 mana up, pretty unusual on turn 5. He has played a morph and did nothing else. Not too suspicious, but it triggers a little alarm clock or something. In your hand you have a Siege Rhino and you have a morph. I would advise to play the morph just because you know he has a Disdainful Stroke in the deck, at least one, and you can't afford to have a spell countered at this point, let's say. Then I would play the morph. On the other hand, the flip side, there's always a flip side. You might be so far behind that you really need that Siege Rhino to come into play, otherwise you will lose. Then it's just play it. If they add Disdainful Stroke, yeah, you lose, but you were gonna lose anyway if you didn't play the Rhino, so if you have known information, let's say you know they have end hostilities, if they're playing like they have it, then you have to respect it. You have to play around it, if you don't want to just lose. But there's also, again, the flip side. Let's say you have a very aggressive deck and no late game at all, and he or she, your opponent, doesn't play much in the way of creatures, and you're certain, well, end hostilities is coming. If you can't win before the end hostilities, and you can't win, or let's say you can't win after the end hostilities, then you just have to play out everything and hope that he breaks on a land or doesn't have it or something, because there's no point in playing around a card if it leads to your demise. That also leads us to the factor of probability. So how likely is it that they have a card like Flying Crane Technique? They have set up the game, they didn't really want to trade off their creatures, they're playing Yes Guy. How likely is it that they have Flying Crane Technique? Well, it's pretty unlikely, it's a rare. It goes pretty early. Maybe it was their first pick, that's an opportunity they could have had. But it's not that likely. If they're keeping mana up or doing stuff, it could easily be because they have another card, like Killshot for example. So it's all about how likely is it. So let's say they have passed the turn and you have a pretty nice attack and they have 3 mana up. They didn't play anything. They have like a tapped land and 3 mana and didn't play a morph or anything. It just screams Killshot. Can you play around it? Well, it depends. Do you survive it being cast on your creatures and you have like a better follow-up or something? Yes, then go ahead and attack straight into it, head on. If they don't have it, well, great. If they have it, then you know that you did a good decision anyway. Well, if you have like one solid creature and you need it to survive, let's say you have an Obscene Guide and you need a lifelinking portion. If you think they have a Killshot you can't attack, that's just crazy stupid. And that also brings us to a card like Dead Drop. Let's say your opponent glances at the graveyard, maybe counting the card, sometimes they do. And you're thinking like, what could they have? They have like 4 cards in the yard and 5 mana. Well, there is expensive cards and that's Dead Drop. You can play around that by like flipping up some tokens or doing whatever, but that's a card you can play around. Maybe you think that he have Dead Drop and I have a few tokens, maybe I shouldn't trade off like my 2 remaining Goblin tokens for his whatever, or my remaining token for his Wetland Sandbar or what have you. Maybe you should play around Dead Drop. That's the question. And that brings me to the third to last point I have to make here, and that's knowledge. You have to know the set, you have to know the cards that is in the set to play around them. On the pre-release I played with a friend of mine and we played Two-Headed Giant. Fantastic, it was really fun. And at one point our opponents attacked and we discussed in the open so they could hear what they could have and what we should play around, and we went through all the possible combo tricks, and I think there was like 5 that we considered by the mana they had up, and then we could start breaking down. Alright, if it's Awaken the Bear, well that's okay because something. If they have Become Immense, well that's bad, and so forth. And then we could decide that out of those 5, only 1 card was bad, and I think it was an uncommon. I think it was Become Immense maybe. And the other one was fine. It would be like a 1-for-1 and we would get some life or whatever, and then we blocked, and then they had like one of the bad combo tricks and that was fine. And that's because we knew what they could have, and that's really important. You can't play around like a counterspell if you don't know that it exists. So if you're planning to play around cards, you have to know what there is. Also, if we're going to play around cards, you also have to let's bring out the last one here. Sega Mauler versus Glacial Stalker. They have a morph. They have 5 untapped mana, green and blue. The probability says that it's not a Sega Mauler. It says that it's a Glacial Stalker. Let's say we have seen the Stalker. We haven't seen the Mauler yet. It's not that likely that it is a Sega Mauler, but if it is, Alright, so let's say you consider those two cards to be the morph. And then you assemble your blocks. Let's say you have 2 3/3s or whatever. And in hand you have something. Now we can start building up this. Well, if it is a Glacial Stalker, do I want to trade off one of my guys for it? Yes, yes, I want to do that. Well, if they have a Sagamore, do I want to trade off both my guys for it? Well, I'm at 20 and he's at 14. Well, no, I don't. I want to bash back. And so forth. And what it all boils down to, what playing around a cause really means, is to make an informed decision. If that's the only thing you take with you from this video, it's making an informed decision. The last thing I want to say is, just because of that, making an informed decision. I was in Prague with 2 of my friends, and we were playing Team Sealed. At least I think it was Prague. Well, it doesn't matter. It was GP, and we were playing Team Sealed. And we got a buy, I think, at some point, and my two friends are sitting down playing. At one point I stop my friends and say, alright, wait here, let's just break this down. So the guy on the left has 2 islands, 2 plains, and like 1 irrelevant creature, and he plays a 2/2 for 2 and say go. So he has 2 mana left, 3 cards in hand. My opponent, the other friend has a Nessian Asp and plays the last land he needs to monsters it. I don't remember if it's, I think it's 7 or whatever. Then I said, okay, let's just break it down here. What does he have in hand? That was my question, and he couldn't really answer. And I named the 3 cards out of my other friend's hand. I named all 3 cards, and they were correct. And that's because I remembered what he had played during the matches. I was with him when he built the deck. That obviously helps. But just because I know what he have played and the way he has been playing, I could name the 3 cards. It was Wavecrasher Triton, Voyage End, and something else. And obviously you can't do these magical predictions all the time, and you shouldn't. But I could at least tell you that much, that he had a combo trick for 2. That was crystal clear. He had a creature for 3 because he was thinking before he played whatever he was going to play. And then he have something more expensive. That was the 3 type of cards I named, and they were correct. Now my other friend could make an informed decision. Well, I can attack with my Nessian Asp because there's no combo trick that kills it. Alright, good. Should I monsters it? No, you shouldn't, because he will blow you out. Should I play 1 big creature to follow it up? No, you should not. You should play 2 minor creatures, and he did, and he has devastated his opponent. And that's what making an informed decision is about. Making your plays based on what you have seen they doing, or how they play, or what you think they have, and then you can play around stuff. Then you have made an informed decision. Let's say his only shot at winning was to, like, end of turn, kill his blocker, untap monsters, swing for lethal. If that was the only thing he could do, his only line of play, well, then it doesn't matter if we think he has a bounce spell in hand. It's completely irrelevant, because you have to play around cards when you can. That's the thing. You can't play around cards because you think they have it, or maybe you have seen someone blow someone out with a card and you think, yeah, I'm gonna respect that card. And you should respect a lot of cards, but you can't play around them just at random. So that's it. That's what I wanted to talk about, when it comes to playing around cards. It all boils down to making an informed decision. If you can predict what type of card, pump spell, counter spell, removal, mass removal, stupid overrun, if you can predict what type of card you think they have, how much time you got left, and a lot of other factors, then you can make the decision based on that, instead of just saying YOLO, swing with everything, because that rarely works out. So yeah, thank you for watching. I try to bring you more Limited Lessons as soon as I can figure out what to talk about. I have signaling, deck building as topics right now that I can think of. So we will see what comes next. Until then, have a great time. Please leave a comment and keep watching.